Welcome to the Esoerotic Dark Feminine Magic podcast. My name is Crimson, creatrix of Esoeroticism, and I help mystically minded folks awaken their dark feminine magic. Welcome to the portal of enchantment. I am here to help people feel. That is a message that I received probably about a year ago now in my first and most likely last ever plant medicine ceremony. And y'all, I am not a plant earth medicine girly. So I took this experience very seriously and I'm still integrating it to this day. But that's the message that came through. I am here to help people feel, and I keep replaying it in my mind. And if you've ever been in an altered state like this, it was a mushroom ceremony, but it's so profound in the moment, like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. The truth is so clear. I am so motivated to move ahead in my life's purpose. And then a couple weeks later, you're like, what the fuck was that? So I am still integrating this message, but it's something that I return to. And it's something that I want to talk about today as it applies to this word embodiment. So I asked this question in my intro series, what does it mean to be embodied? And usually I'm met with a lot of blank stares. Don't overthink it. It's what you think it is. It's being in the body. And we'll talk about the benefits of embodiment. But first, I want to talk about why embodiment is even worth talking about. And it's because I believe we're in a time as a society that we are at a huge deficit of embodiment, and it's quite detrimental. And when I think about why do we not prioritize embodiment? Why are we disembodied? I'm going to have to say two things, and I'll talk about both. The first is, I'm sure you know this, information overload in the technological age. And the second, which you may not have considered before, is actually spiritual influence. So real quick, starting off with something I probably don't have to talk too much about, but the idea that we live in a time of technological innovation where any information that we could ever desire is at our fingertips. So this includes something like this podcast, right? This would be technological information that could be contributing to an overload. Hopefully not. Not all information is disembodied. We'll get to that. But whether it's scrolling on social media, whether it's using AI, whether it's doing some kind of online Google search, whether it is simply always having something in your earbuds, your ear holes, your AirPods, of just delivery of some kind of information. Yeah, we haven't always, but for a long time, for all of us who've been alive, have had books, but you can't read while you're multitasking at the grocery store or driving, or can you? I would recommend not. But point is, we don't even have to critically think as much as we used to. We can have AI do that for us, and that's probably a conversation for another day. But because of this instantaneous access to any information we could ever need, we have formed an addiction to this ability. So always wanting to take in more information and confusing that for wisdom. Information is not wisdom. That being said, technology in general is addictive. It's formatted that way. We all understand the dopamine hits, the instant gratification. We know it's bad for us, but we do it anyway. And because of that, we're glued to these screens. We're constantly overstimulated with information, with content creation. I'm creating content right now. Look at me. So but I think it's possible to take in information in a conscious way that doesn't lead to ultimate disembodiment. And so as we are engaged in these screens, we are completely in our minds, and it can really lead to a lot of numbing and disassociation in the body. At the same time, when we're taking in a lot of information, when we think we just need one more book or we need to just listen to one more podcast, then we tend to forget about the importance of embodied integration. Am I right? And so I like to liken it to this. You could read 12 books on how to ride a bike, and you are a fucking bike expert as far as you are concerned. You put your hands on those pedals, you throw your ass up over the handlebars, you cluck like a chicken, and that bike moves. Spoiler, not the way a bike works, but if you never rode a bike, and you only read books that were telling you that's the way it works, as far as you know, you think you're wise, you think you're an expert on riding a bike. And we need to remember that with information. So not only do we need to be conscious about how we are disassociating and numbing with our integration into these black mirrors. So as a reminder, a black mirror is what our phone screens are made up of, and those are portals, and they can be portals to suck you in. And as you do that, you can really lose yourself, and we've all experienced that, right? That, oh my gosh, it's 3 a.m, I just was totally down this rabbit hole, and we're at the point where you just need, like, the only thing that's going to give you that dopamine hit is like a cat video. I mean, tell me you're disassociated without telling me you're disassociated. So there's that. On the other hand, with the information overload, we confuse information for wisdom, and we become disembodied because we don't think that we actually need to be in our bodies to know a thing, to experience a thing. I mean, I can watch a movie on Egypt, or I could go to Egypt. One is more real than the other, and I am sure there is some tech bro out there that would argue the contrary and is trying to sell me some virtual reality. But embodiment, experiencing sensory connection, is the human experience that I seek and that I am here to help people feel, that I want to convey through this podcast. So that's one way. The information overload and the technological advancements that are addictive, that try to sell us that we can be something without embodying it. I mean, even look at AI filters, right? Like, oh, you put on this filter and you can conceive yourself to be a warrior or whatever the filters are without actually having to train to be a warrior. It's this instant gratification of illusion. Ooh, that was good. So, not to dwell on that, because I want to talk about the second aspect that potentially you've not considered before, which is the spiritual influence. And I see this a lot because mystically minded folks are my people, and there is a lot of influence out there, both in religion and spiritual new age, that tries to convince us that the body's the problem. My body's a cage. We've all heard of original sin, that my body is actually the reason why I need to repent. It instills in us fear, shame, guilt around simply existing in a meat suit when it comes to a lot of religious dogma out there. So right then and there, if you were raised in that, you're at odds with your body, and it feels safer to just not be in it, right? On the other hand, we have some new age practices that like us to think that the body is a cage, that our spiritual ascension happens beyond the body. And I have to argue the contrary, that this idea that The real work, the real spiritual work happens on the astral plane or in the dream world or in the meditative mind. I mean, even when we think about meditation, the whole point of meditation is that it's a practice to clear the mind, to bring us embodied presence. We all hear about the power of presence, how that is truly the antidote to anxiety and depression is to just be here now, as I think Eckhart Tolle once said. But you can't be here now if you're up in the head and you're not in the body. The only way that you could be present is to be fully immersed in your meat suit. And so, yeah, spiritually, I think a lot of people in pursuit of moving beyond the mundane dismiss caring for their body at all. And I will say something that I've experienced is that true magic doesn't happen in the mind, it happens in the body. True spiritual connection doesn't happen in the astral, it happens here amongst humans. I think it can be really beneficial for people to make us believe that the body is the problem. And potentially that's because our body is where our power lies. So let's first talk about what happens when we're disembodied, the problem with being disembodied, and then we'll talk about the benefits of embodiment. So first and foremost, disembodiment. The problem with being disembodied is that when we're disembodied, we are very easily duped, manipulated, and controlled. How so, you ask? Well, I'll give a few examples. The first is if we are only relying on our logical mind and not our feeling, intuitive body, because intuition is a benefit of embodiment, which we'll talk more about. But if we are disembodied, when you're disembodied, it means you are prioritizing the mental, the headspace, the logic, the masculine. And if that's the case, I can dupe you every which way. I can tell you this, that, and the other, and you have no reason to believe otherwise. I use the example of, again, in the intro series, I use the example of you meet someone and they're saying all the right things, and on paper they have the right job, they live in the right place, they have the right clothing on. And so you trusted them when deep down you knew that was a fuck boy, that was a fuck girl, or that was someone who was a total sham in whatever way that may be. And that is the prime example of being disembodied, when you do not trust a greater knowing because you don't believe that there is a truth or a wisdom that could come from something that's not logical, you know? And so, yeah, look good on paper, say the right words. That's how you finagle a whole society, right? That's a whole scam. When we're disembodied, we are disconnected from our emotions, our sensory feeling experiences. And again, what a way to control a population if you can't feel sadness. What the hell do you care if there's injustices happening around the world, or if you don't feel empathy? If you don't feel joy or pleasure, what do you care if you're working 20-hour shifts? If you don't feel peace, what do you care if there's chaos going on around you? How do you empathize or connect with the human experience and the humans around you without feeling, without being embodied? It's, in one way, people could argue, oh, well, I want to be disassociated, I want to be numb, because there's so much pain in the world that it's easier. And this is an argument for addiction. You know, this is why a lot of people who move through trauma become addicts, because the pain of what really happened is so overbearing that the answer is to just disassociate and numb. And I think it's what we're doing as a society. However, if we want to heal, if we want to move beyond traumas, personal or societal, there is no way through but through. We have to feel, to experience, to integrate, and then to move beyond, right? And so we're just not taught how to do that. So we turn to drugs or alcohol or shopping or whatever it may be, scrolling, doom scrolling. You know, there's so much trauma happening in the world. And I'm sure you've all heard this, how we were never meant to take in this much global trauma in such a short amount of time on a tiny screen. Our nervous systems are a wreck. Embodiment can help with that. But instead, we just choose to disassociate and numb. And we are literally, because of that, holding all of these unprocessed emotions and energies and, you know, traumas, whether they're big T or little t, in our body. And we're never healing. And we're just becoming more and more unhealthy, toxic, underexpressed as a people. And so, and again, when we're in that state, man, when we're not healed, when we're not feeling, when we don't have the ability to empathize with those around us, we're perfect pawns in a game where other people are winning. So think about that. It's just got really dire. But there is a lot of downfalls. I mean, just not being able to feel pleasure. What's the point of being human? But also being able to sit in grief and sadness. That is a part of being a full human. And it is actually part of the beauty of being human, and to being able to sit with that, even through discomfort, even not feeling good. That's a superpower right there. And it's how we grow, and it's how we become more spiritual. In my opinion, people think spiritual is like hanging out on the astral plane and connecting to archangels or something. I think it's spiritual to be able to have a conversation with a stranger at the supermarket. That's spiritual to me. To be able, you know, what's magic? Okay, let's talk alchemy real quick. People think alchemy is turning lead to gold. No, alchemy is being able to transform energies, emotions, experiences in a lower form, alchemizing them into a higher form. So taking a lower desired emotion, let's say, and having the magic, allowing us to transmute it into something higher, more desired, greater. And so that's alchemy. And that is what allows us to be fully integrated spiritual humans. Not bypassing, not only saying, well, to me, the greatest work is to be able to take in the news of the day and not allow it to ruin us, but to feel it and to move through it and to alchemize that into a greater appreciation for a sense of life, greater empathy for another human, or action into changing what we feel is unjust in the world. So, but when we're disembodied, when we're disassociated, there's none of that. There's contentment, and there's spiraling, and there's depression, and there's anxiety, all head-based experiences. And so now that I just left us on a bummer, let's bring it on up and let's talk about the positive aspects of embodiment. There's so many. Again, I mean, I guess the opposite of what we just said, our capacity to feel, our capacity to feel a range of emotions and accept those as the full human experience, and allowing ourselves to become the alchemists with those, taking what we need, being able to release what's no longer serving us. All of that happens in the body. A lot of times people think that the subconscious, so I'm sure you've heard of the subconscious. The subconscious is the not conscious self, the underconscious self. And so it's associated with the dark feminine, which we talked about in the dark feminine episode. It's the hidden. And people think this subconscious, this hidden energy or aspect of ourselves is the mind. And I'm guilty of saying this sometimes, the subconscious mind, when I'm really trying to be better at saying the subconscious self, because here's the thing, the subconscious exists in the body. Within our literal meat suits, sorry, I keep using that word, in our literal bodies is where we store old traumas, old emotions, old energies, past stories, programs, belief systems. All of that is not just residing in the mind, it's also stored within the body. And because of that, we need an embodiment practice of some sort to be able to move through, to experience full integration and healing. It's not a mind game. The mind, I'm not dismissing the mind, but as I said with the masculine, I think we've mastered the mind. I'm good with the mind. I can overthink anything. I can be critical of anything, and I can spiral like a motherfucker if I allow myself to. The challenge is, and the antidote to that is, can you find connection in the body to sit with it, to process it, to integrate it, to move through it, to heal it, like I said. And so, yeah, we're a sick population because we're not addressing where the sickness lies. And it's in that the energetic body, not just the mental minds. So yeah, without embodiment, there's no integration, there's no healing, there's also no intuition. And so that is a beautiful superpower that we all possess. We know intuition to be like a gut feeling, an inner knowing, something that we can't wrap logic around, but that is an ultimate truth. The example I used before with the fuck boy, fuck girl, fuck human, whatever. There is no logic to it. You just knew it. And here's the thing, when you're embodied, when you prioritize embodiment practices, and embodiment practices are practices that literally gain us greater connection and stronger messaging from our physicality, our bodies, our feelings, our emotions. And when we develop that and we have a stronger intuition, we are just more, I don't mean to use the word divinely in like some kind of dogmatic way, but just more guided from a higher perspective, from a perspective where we just can't know, but it's a truth. And whether you believe that's a higher self or a God or guides, whatever. But we know that intuition is real. It's scientifically proven. However, when we're shut off from the body, we can't hear it. We don't listen to it. And so if we want to find greater flow in this world, if we want greater guidance, if we want to maybe avoid some pitfalls, we're going to want to have some intuition. And that comes from embodiment. And not to undervalue the most obvious thing is just our ability to feel good, to feel sensual pleasure, sensuous pleasure, the engaging in the senses, to taste, to smell, to feel, to hear, to see, to take in beauty in some capacity. Could you imagine being dull to that? I mean, to rather be in a beautiful nature state or museum or some place where there is just so much beauty or interest to behold, and to rather be taking in a reflection of something on a screen. There's just, yeah, I mean, we could go real deep and I'm not going to go there, but there is, again, returning to being a fully expressed, a fully experienced, and a fully connected human with ourselves, with others, involves the ability to feel. And we dismiss it like it's less than. Oh, it's definitely of more value to know more things, to have more information. That's the society we grew up in. I mean, we grew up taking tests, right? Being able to regurgitate. And it's a program within us that life is more. I actually had a great conversation with one of my besties last night. And we literally had the conversation. She's on vacation and she just said, I went and I picked cherries from a tree and I ate them, and I was reminded of the human perspective and kind of where I've been really serving a system and depleting myself for something so much less important, and that we think this PowerPoint that I'm working on, this is real, this is what's important, this is what I need to value, and not my ability to feel the sun on my face, to taste a ripe strawberry, to be able to like feel pleasure sensations in the body. Let's talk about eroticism while we're here. Hello. Oh my goodness, how many people try to reclaim their sexuality, become sexually powerful, become sensuous in their body through, wanting to find a loving connection with their body through books. What's a book that I can read on that? Libby, give me some more mental masturbation on that. Like, no. There's the only sexual energy is in the body. Okay. So you can only connect with, heal, activate, amplify your sexual energy through embodiment. And I know people, there's this idea of like, yeah, well, we can visualize. Yes, we can visualize. There's forms of hypnosis that are very powerful. There is, subconscious dream work. I get all of those are a thing. And it's just so funny to me that people want to point to that rather than doing something as simple as moving their body, sensually and sexually expressing their body. Doing some kind of dance or movement. People would rather find a 10-point breath work technique to help them reclaim their sexual sovereignty and read a 500-page book than just fucking be in their body and sexually express. And I'm talking eroticism outside of partnership, outside of the bedroom, outside of intercourse. It's so funny to me that we avoid embodiment so much that we will create so many barriers to something that should be so simple. I want to go through the trouble of using some computer program to express what an orange is than to just fucking eat an orange. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we've gotten to that point of absurdity as a culture where it's like, why are we avoiding just being embodied and doing the things? I'd rather, so I said before, not all information is bad, and this is a part of embodiment too, is integrating information and embodying it. So, we talked about the sensuality. We talked about the moving through emotions, and even, being an energy worker. Being an energy worker involves being in your body, working with energy, which as, mystically minded folks is so important to be able to connect with energy in a way that is a feeling, not I read 10 books on it. You don't become a good energy worker by reading books. You do it by practicing and embodying and feeling the energy flow and your connection to energy around you. But on a more simple note, just a way to start, instead of doing programs or like For instance, I love Masterclass. If you know, that's like an online they teach master classes from people, and I'm listening to one right now on the US presidents, and I could just see that as a form of information and just background sound, and but what I'm really trying to do is to embody it in how I show up in a leadership capability, or a leadership capacity, and embodying things that I learn about, so it's not just information, so it becomes wisdom. And that's just a simple way to start. I mean, how many do we see this in the spiritual world all the time? People can listen, we can do it. I'm not gonna come after the religious folks, because that's not how I identify. I will throw myself in there as a more mystically minded folk, or a witchy person, or a magical person. Oh, I know all of these herbs associations, and I know these spells. I know the proper mantra or meditative journey, whatever it is. But I can't even manage my emotions to not yell at a barista, is that the work? Is the work the information, or is the work actually like integrating and embodying it? The information is there. It's important. I hope that you're getting something out of the information of this rambling podcast. But the point of the information is to integrate and embody it, okay? In the body, in the feeling, in the emotions, in the action taking and the expression. And in a way to get more embodied, if you are numb, if you are disassociated, is to find an embodiment practice. I love esoeroticism. It's a style of dance and movement that's mixed with magical techniques and a ritual formula. But what it does is it gets you out of the mind, and it gets you reconnected with being able to feel. Sometimes for the first time, we have a lot of tears in our intro experiences, because people who have completely numbed because of unfortunate past experiences, for the first time were able to feel again and feel pleasure. And that's profound. That's profound, to release like the shame, the judgments, the feeling of unsafety around something like sexuality. But this could apply to anything. That's just my expertise. But yeah, do something where you're not punishing your body, where it doesn't take profound mental discipline to make your way through. Maybe it doesn't have to be that hard. Maybe it can be soft. Maybe it could be something just as like, tracing your body. Maybe it's as simple as when you eat, to feel the flavors and feel the flavor. Well, feel the texture and taste the flavors without multitasking, something I'm terrible at. So this is something I'm telling me too. But yeah, man, embodiment. It's the not so secret of being human, is being in a body, and something that we have been, I think, manipulated to believe is of less importance, or is something to be shameful about or feel guilt about. And when in reality, it's our superpower. It's how we can connect to each other. It's how we can heal. It's how we can move through challenges. It's how we can expand and grow. It's how we can be a personal authority and not just a disciple of some sort. I don't know if that's the right word, but someone who just listens and does what they're told. I don't think that's a disciple, but insert correct word there. So yeah, I know this is getting rambly, so I'm going to leave it at that, but it's a topic I'm so passionate about. And in one way or another, I'm going to leave you with the question, how are you prioritizing embodiment? And in the ways that we discussed that are stealing our embodiment, that are numbing us, that are making us disassociated, how can we consciously choose to engage in different ways, in more empowering ways? And how can we choose a more full human experience filled with magic, filled with empowerment, filled with our ability to literally change the world, not as obedient followers, but as sovereign creatrixes? How can you move in that way? How can you prioritize embodiment? I would love for you to join me through esoeroticism, but it's obviously not the only embodiment practice, but maybe just take note to see how you avoid it. How you choose disassociation over feeling, being, expressing, creating. You know, great creation comes from embodiment. You know, you can parrot, you can be performative, but there is nothing that is a profound expression that isn't felt and doesn't, ooh, the candle just popped and agreed. It's also saying stop talking, but that doesn't come from some kind of embodied place of deep feeling and wisdom. So with that, thank you so much for listening or watching. If you have any other topics you'd like to discuss, feel free to reach out and let me know. See what we got going on at esoerotic.com. I'm always having retreats and workshops whenever you listen to this. Get on our newsletter list. Find me at crimson.minx and minx.muse, but with the warning not to doom scroll, conscious engagement. So with that being said, stay in your magic. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye. Thank you for joining. Follow me on Instagram at crimson.minx and visit esoerotic.com to learn to live more fully and unapologetically in your magnetic power, sensual pleasure, and unlimited creative potential.